Welcome to Ungerrymander America, a show about the past, present, and the future of the system. I'm your host, Zane Gustafson, and today is July 4th, 2026, and I've decided to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence with a solo episode of Ungerrymander America. Happy 4th of July. In this episode, take a step back with me and look at America through the long view of history. Look at the shape of our republic and what we Americans can do as we sit on the temporal crossroads of empire. And it's clear where I must start, which is with today's date, July 4th, 2026, Independence Day. Across the country, Americans are celebrating the 250th anniversary, the semi-quincentennial anniversary, the 1/4 of a millennium anniversary of these words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Those are the words that bind us as Americans. Those are the words that to me define what it means to be American, to strive together toward better government, a humanist ethos of equality between all humans. Those words are also a reminder that we are the ultimate arbiters of our destiny. It is up to you, me, and every American that we all know that our government is dysfunctional. And so it's up to us to decide if we will allow our republic to decay or if we will work together to not just demand renewal, but to rebuild in a way that honors those words. And I think that's something that we've forgotten in today's political discourse, poisoned by rage bait rewarding algorithms and driven by the desires of those technofeudal, techno-fascist oligarchs. We get so focused on the narrow, short-term thing designed to make us argue. What did Trump tweet this time? Is there a ceasefire being violated? Quick, pay attention to the trans woman in the bathroom and ignore the trillionaire stealing all your data. None of that matters when you take a step back and look at the long view. And that's what I'm doing here today. Taking the long view, thinking about in 50 years, at America's 300th anniversary, what my future unborn grandchildren might learn in their high school history class about America in the early 21st century. Because in the grander scheme, 250 years. Because in the grander scheme, 250 years of history really isn't that long compared to the history of China or the Indus Valley or the Peruvian Andean civilizations. In America, it was only 72 years ago that segregation was outlawed, 161 years since the end of slavery. And we also shouldn't forget that the United States began as a colonial venture for 150 years and continued as such even after independence. Behind me is the skyline of Seattle, a city named for Chief Seattle of the Duwamish people, upon whose land I currently reside, on the western edge of North America. Americans manifested their destiny until they ran out of land, conquering and colonizing from sea to shining sea. Compare that to Rome, 250 years of monarchy as a city-state, followed by 500 years of republic, and another 500 years of empire. And if you include Byzantium, the second Rome, add another 1,000 years. And I know it's cliched, but you know that meme about the guys being obsessed with the Roman Empire? My Roman Empire is the Roman Empire. And you know why I was obsessed? Am obsessed? It's because America is Third Rome. Francis Ford Coppola gets what I mean. But the parallels are too important to ignore. History teaches if only we will learn. The Roman Republic did not suddenly come to an end. Okay? There was a full century of buildup and degradation of their institutions of government, of their checks and balances, before their republic finally died. The long downfall started with the conquest of the entire Mediterranean by about 150 BC. At that point, there were no more external threats to Rome. But ambition knows no bounds. The populous Gracchi brothers, Tiberius and Gaius, took on a corrupt aristocracy and eventually succeeded in changing the system in favor of the plebeian class, but their institution-breaking and violent means caused the aristocracy to respond in kind, and both brothers were killed. They also weren't angels and accumulated power for the sake of power. Then came the charismatic and ambitious generals Marius and Sulla. They realized that their armies were more loyal to them than to the Senate. Over the course of a decade, each of them separately marched on Rome to remove their political opponents from power, executing many of them and claiming power for themselves. Marius claimed power in 87 BC, but died just a year later. His nephew, Julius Caesar, just a teenager at the time, was watching. Caesar was watching again a few years later when Sulla marched on Rome and made himself dictator for life. Sulla tried to enact reforms so that the Roman Republic government would continue, but the dictatorship genie was out of the bottle. After that, Julius Caesar took the example of Sulla to the logical conclusion. He worked his way up the political and military ladder. He went out on campaign, conquering more land for the glory of Rome. He amassed more and more personal power until when the Senate finally said, "You must come back and give up your position and return to Rome," Caesar responded by marching his army across the Rubicon, declaring civil war, and the die was cast. Julius Caesar won that war and became dictator, but was assassinated before he could fully transition republic to empire. That work would be done by his grandnephew Octavian, who would become Augustus. What is this history lesson of the last 100 years of the Roman Republic mean for America in 2026? There's a kind of symmetry here, where the US became the sole superpower of the world after the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, much how Rome became the sole superpower of the Mediterranean. And ever since 1991, it has felt like our politics and division has turned inward against each other. It's like America needed some kind of external foe to keep us working together. And because there are more of us than in ancient Rome, and we have media technologies that accelerate discourse, all these cycles of history seem to be moving faster and faster. So just 25 years later, we see the rise of Donald Trump. And despite the pearl clutchers in the media establishment, Donald Trump is no Caesar. He's too old to make it happen. And he's also too early in our history. He's more like one of the Gracchi brothers that introduced political violence. Or he might be a Marius or a Sulla with a potential Caesar waiting, watching, and learning. And so I'm more worried about what comes after Trump than what he is doing himself. And that's where the political dysfunction of a republic comes in, as it continues to deepen and deepen. The checks and balances that our founders conceived have utterly failed. Congress has abdicated its authority over the decades to a power-hungry president, aided by a ludicrous Supreme Court. And on the Supreme Court, just real quick, what the fuck? I could pick a dozen cases that are insane, but the fact that the birthright citizenship case was not 9-0 is just absurd. Here's the text of the 14th Amendment, because apparently 4 of the 9 justices cannot read. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That means everyone born in the country is a citizen, except for children of diplomats and of literal invading armies. That's it. Those are the exceptions. 4 of the justices, Samuel Alito, Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Neil Gorsuch, ruled that the 14th Amendment does not say what it says. It is absurd. Impeach all of them for being illiterate and for breaking their oaths to the Constitution. And I got other issues with John Roberts and the Calais decision and all that other stuff. But if we keep going on the Supreme Court, this video will never end. So moving on. Political dysfunction, right? It's one of the core issues in America in 2026, but it's not the only issue. If our government was working the way it was supposed to work, if the dysfunction wasn't dysfunctioning, we could actually address the other issues. We could actually promote the general welfare, as they put it in the Constitution. We could actually solve these issues, like how the economy is completely rigged for the billionaires, and now a singular trillionaire has stolen all our data and is looting our government in broad daylight. And this is another parallel to Rome and to our own Gilded Age of the Rockefellers and Carnegies and Vanderbilts. After all, Plutarch warns us that an imbalance between rich and poor is the oldest and most fatal ailment of all republics. Because today, we are in the Gilded Age 2.0. At his richest, Rockefeller had wealth equal to about 1.5% of the US GDP. In 2026, Elon Musk has wealth equal to 3% of the US GDP. And all of that while healthcare is still unaffordable, while groceries and gas and rent all keep going up, and thousands of Americans sleep in the street. We all see what's happening here because it is happening in broad daylight. This is techno-feudalism, where no one owns anything, but we rent everything, from homes to movies to cloud services to subscription, this and that and the other thing. Anything to keep the money moving, flowing, up, up, up. But on the other hand, this global economic empire has benefited me personally, and maybe you too. Just look at this magnificent cityscape behind me, built by that same tech wealth I was just decrying. It boggles the mind, the dichotomy of the wealth of these skyscrapers compared to the abject poverty of the thousands of homeless on the street. Capitalism, after all, requires a lower class to exploit. And even as I criticize my city and my country, I love it. I love Seattle, and I love America. On this 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I am proud to be an American and to be alive in these interesting times. America has given me opportunity and privilege galore. And even as our system of government remains for now a republic, our economy truly is a global empire. The opportunity to travel and see the world as an American is incredible. Our dollar is the global currency, and we can go practically anywhere with impunity. I know this because I have lived it. I lived as a digital nomad for 2 years, working remotely, getting paid in US dollars, living it up like the American expats in Paris in the 1920s. That's when I wrote my book about how to fix our broken constitution. But that's not what this is about. The point is that I have personally benefited from the fruit of this American empire, and you probably have too, even as the billionaires take and take and take. It's hardly a crazy take to say that the fruits of empire should be shared more equally. I want our empire to spend our money on education and healthcare and the renewable energy of the future, and not bombs and tax breaks for billionaires as they burn our climate. I'm not saying that empire is a good thing, okay? Because objectively speaking, it's a bad thing. You know, what with the genocide and the slavery and the war and the oppression. It's also the history of the world. One empire rises, enjoys a peak, and then declines as a new empire rises to take its place. America grew from a small nation of 4 million people in the 1780s when the framers wrote the Constitution to a continent-spanning world superpower of 350 million and counting. And remember that our growth and strength has come in large part due to the history of immigration to this country. My own family history includes Scandinavian immigrants around 1900 on one side, and English immigrants all the way back in the colonial era on the other side. Despite the Stephen Millers of the world, immigration has been and will continue to be a strength for America, wherever on the globe the immigrants may come from. Because even as we are an aging republic, we still have such awesome opportunity, if only we would get out of our own way. And that's one of the things that frustrates me the most with Trump. He keeps putting his foot in all of our mouths. His Iran war is one of the stupidest decisions in our history. America is powerful, but we are not all powerful. It reminds me of the folly of Rome when they tried to endlessly expand. About 30 years into Augustus's reign, as the first emperor of Rome, the Romans tried to conquer Germania. They sent their legions north and were met by a colossal, catastrophic defeat at the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest. Go watch Historia Civilis to get the full story on that. The comparison here is an empire overextending militarily for something of not great value. I mean, what was the point of attacking Iran? All we got was the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, global economic instability, and a global energy crisis. And the story of that war is not even over. But it is illustrative of the entire Trump foreign policy, which is to swing a big stick and piss everyone off. The rest of the globe is realigning right now. America is no longer trustworthy if we ever were, and the rest of the world is preparing for the turmoil of a lurching, aging superpower. It feels like World War III has been soft launched, but hasn't quite hit the fan yet. But Trump is a symptom of our aging republic as much as he is a cause of our potential turn toward empire. In many ways, we are a hollow country with an economy built like a casino, where everyone is trying to make their bag and get out before the house collapses. But I don't want to conclude on such a sour note, because I believe in the promise of America and in the potential of the American people. All of the American people. I believe in you, and I believe in the American Republic, and that democracy is the best way to govern now and far into the future. As Abraham Lincoln said, as a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. What he meant is that there is no external threat that can destroy us. Only we can destroy ourselves. I want to see American greatness for the next 250 years, don't you? And for us to be great for the next 250 years after that. And for that, we need to have a government that functions and that can be flexible and that can evolve to meet the needs of each era. It is so obvious that our current government is failing on that. And that was something that Trump saw. But his solutions, his "I alone can fix it," that approach is doomed, as anyone who has studied history knows. These autocratic systems do not work in the long term. Even Rome's 5 good emperors only lasted 100 years before their government again descended to madness. I don't want America to last just 100 years. I want America to be great for the next 250 years, and the 250 after that. And for that to happen, we need to return to the words of the Declaration written 250 years ago. We all know the beginning of the Declaration, which I said at the beginning of this video. But most of the Declaration is actually a list of grievances against the King of Great Britain, which are shockingly relevant today. Here are some of them. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has erected a multitude of new offenses and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. For protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. He has excited domestic insurrectionists among us. And in every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. A prince, whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. It is our job, together, to carry the flame of American democracy and pass it on to the next generation. It is our job to build a system of true representation that brings power back to the people, to the consent of the governed, because the task of creating a more perfect government is never complete. Happy 4th of July to you, to your family, and every American past, present, and future. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.